Okay, we're going to get this thing started. Um, we have a buffet lunch provided by Oscar's Catering. Each table will be told when to get up and get in the buffet line. But at this time, I'd like to ask on Dr. George Brown to come forward for today's invocation.
Let us bow our heads for the invocation. Holy and eternal God, we ask that you be present today as we celebrate the lifelong achievements and service given to your world by those we recognize and honor today. We give you thanks for the grace that you graciously offer to your people of every time and every place. We especially give you thanks to all those past and present who have been guided by you to mold the lives of the late Hazel Waller, Francis Yarnall, Ellen Arnone, James Combs, and Mark Mangus. We know that your grace is endless for those who seek to do all that is good in your world. We also know that your grace is endless for those who struggle and need your merciful presence in their lives. As we partake in this meal provided by you, we give you thanks for this food. We give you thanks for the hands that prepared this food. And we give you thanks for your presence as we share this meal together. And the people of God say, Amen.
Okay, we're going to get started here. This is like a family function. When it gets, all of your families, when it gets quiet, people are eating. When it starts to get noisy again, people are ready to go. So we're going to get started here. To keep eating, enjoying your lunch, getting another dessert. Don't take too many because my wife is watching. I'd like to welcome some of the past award winners from the inductee class of 2012. Me. From 2013. No. Stan. I'm sorry. CWO 4, James F. Combs. Also from 2013, from the graduated in 1956, the Honorable J. Frederick Scher. From the inductee class of 2014, Dr. Linda Weber Dunbar. From 2016, C. Michael Dickin, PhD, graduating in 75. From the class, for the inductee class of 2019, graduated in 1970, Greg Hare. And from the class of 2022, Larry D. Boggs. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody showing up. There was no D's Not Words winners that showed up because, first off, a lot of them has passed on, but we do have one, I'm sorry, from 2018, O. Delbert Proudfoot. So thank you all for coming. So one thing I wanted to mention today, this is luncheons put on by the We Are Fort Hill Committee, and some of the things we do. A lot of you have got a letter from us, and you've been very generous in your donations because we stay busy. We are, among the activities we do, the Senior Signing Day, which we did yesterday in the auditorium. By the way, air conditioning is going to be put in here at Fort Hill. They're going to redo the auditorium, but then they had the auditorium, they had the cafeteria, but the first thing they did was put AC in the gymnasium, and we call that Fort Hill priority. Shining Stars, Rising Stars, and the Pride program. That is for a Shining Star is an outstanding student honored for academic excellence. Rising Stars are those recognized for success and improvement in their classrooms, their behavior, and their grades and their efforts. And then the Pride Awards is in recognition of the ideals of Fort Hill High School and the community service. We do this. We have a breakfast here in the cafeteria with all the parents here, their parents, because we want their parents to see them get recognition for the hard work they do. The Fort Hill High School Hall of Fame, which we have 2 inductees this year. We'll get to that. Our World War II monument. If you haven't stopped by, please do. It's down here at the end of the school where the old, dying pine trees used to be. And we took those pine trees down, and we took some heat initially for it because people don't like change. But we put up a real nice World War II memorial with the names of all of the Fort Hill graduates that passed away giving their lives for our freedom in World War II. And that much thanks goes to Miss, oh my gosh, don't mind me, I'll get there. Geez, Ellen Proudfoot Arnone, who researched and did a tremendous job and found 39 names, 39, who graduated from Fort Hill and lost their lives in World War II. And since we put that memorial up, we have not had one complaint that someone was left out. So congratulations, Ellen, for a great job. We also give individual assistance when needed to any student. They've got to come through Principal Candy Cannon or the guidance counselors, but when we can, we give assistance to those students to help them out in the way we can. Anything that they need, maybe even money for taking a special test to move on. The Christmas Endeavor, teachers and counselors work together to identify those students that don't have much money, their families, and we give them gifts at Christmas. This past year, we did over 40 students. We've given them personal hygiene items, articles of clothing, and then also each student's family is provided a holiday meal donated by our local food bank. So these students all and their parents all get something. That's great. That's a great job. So those are some of the things we do. And now I would like to recognize the We Are Fort Hill Committee. I am chairman in name only. Great team, great team. And Sally Shreve is not designated as a vice chair, but she is a vice chair. Eleanor Noon, Jim Combs, Jim Hott. Glad, Jim, you stuck around. You have to go up to help your son coach Potomac State soccer, so I'm glad you're here. Let me see. We still got Melissa Hensel, Kathy Bloom, Harvey May. You all disappeared on me here. George Brown, his wife Kathy Brown, and Marina Christopher. Am I forgetting anybody? So anyway, they all do a tremendous job. And thank you all for the We Are Fort Hill Committee. So let's get started here. Our first Hall of Fame inductee from the class of 1974. Now, I've said this in the past, and Fred Scherer has given me heat on this, but the greatest graduating class of all time. I knew all the girls were here, so I thought I'd take advantage of that. But Hazel Lawler graduated in 74. She was an outstanding leader in our class. And I still remember our get-togethers at Hazel's on a weeknight. We accomplished nothing, but we had a get-together just to get away from our parents and get out of the house. And the Lawler family was nice enough to let us use their house to do it. And we always ended up with a Chef Boyardee pizza. Now I was reading the directions and to make this Chef Boyardee pizza, and I said, okay, next we put the herbs on. And I caught so much flack for saying the H in herbs. So I didn't know. I thought your herbs are herbs. So I'm just glad we didn't have hors d'oeuvres because I probably would have said Dior or I was some pronunciation, and I'd still be hearing about it to this day. But Hazel was a tremendous leader of her class, and she was outstanding in what she did after Fort Hill. She was a champion and force and took change in the lives of children because she was a fighter for children's cancer, to prevent children's cancer. In 1986, she moved from Allegheny County, Maryland, to Allegheny County, Virginia. And they spell it weird, but um, that's what she did, and she still considered uh, preventing cancer in children the best thing she could do. Um, while much of her focus remained on the families, she also continued to believe in the impact of nurses, and she ended up having a wing named for her, the Hazel E. Lawler Children's Cancer Center, and it continues to be in touch with lives in Allegheny County, Virginia today. I've got the daughter Jessica, and I've got her sister Janet, who still lives on White Avenue. I didn't know you were there. Yeah, nice two-car garage you put on there. Oh, oh, very nice. Thank you. So please welcome from the class of 1974, Hazel Lawler. Jessica.
The youngest of four, my mom, Hazel, was born in Grafton, West Virginia. She moved to Cumberland with her family in 1962. She was 5. By all accounts, a precocious and extremely stubborn child. I suspect she was a somewhat independent-minded teenager. Though she leapfrogged from her junior year at Fort Hill to her freshman year of college, I know she would be grateful that her classmates of 1974 still claim her. Mom didn't often talk of her childhood, but I can easily imagine her, skinny as a rail, with her John Lennon glasses and her Army surplus jacket, lugging around that bassoon. Never one for pomp and circumstance, I remember being surprised at her insistence that I attend my own high school graduation. Only later did I realize it was because she was sorry she had missed her own with some of you. While dreaming of life as a concert bassoonist, with a small patch of land and a garden, Mom earned her associates in nursing at ACC and went on to earn her bachelor's while working in the pediatric units at Memorial and Sacred Heart, and raising me. I had no idea what a head nurse did, but it sounded very important, and I remember being so proud of that. I also remember that it was mesmerizing to watch her with a child. She seemed to speak a language of the hands and of the heart that was universally understood. You're safe, it seemed to say. Years later, those who traveled with her in Romania would remark on this very same magic. In 1986, as Mark mentioned, we did move to Clifton Forge, Virginia. It is one of those other Allegheny counties, and they do spell it wrong. Also, rather confusingly, Allegheny is the home team there. Guided by her own instincts and likely some of her experiences in pediatric nursing, Mom wrote a grant application to create an early intervention program for children not yet served by most Head Start programs. At the time, programming typically started at age 2. She was convinced that earlier intervention could make a critical difference, and Project Impact in the Allegheny Highlands was soon born. I spent a lot of time at Mom's office as it grew and changed over the years, and I can so easily call up the memory of a sink full of toys and the Cloroxy water we used to clean them. While the program certainly focused on professional therapeutics, I always had the impression that it was much more than immediate developmental needs that were being addressed. Under the auspices of the Community Services Board, no family was turned away from the program for inability to pay, and many of them faced the complex and overwhelming challenges and stigma that accompany poverty. Some of the extra services were overt and visible, treating head lice, providing snacks for hungry siblings who didn't really need services, traveling to Richmond when state legislation veered away from the needs of these infants and toddlers. I suspect, though, that quieter, more subtle acts of kindness may have been even more powerful. A safe space to cry and to laugh, caring staff with whom to mourn, celebrate, or vent, the power of simply feeling seen. Making someone feel seen was a particular gift of Mom's. To return for just a moment to that language of the hands and of the heart, it occurred to me as I wrote this that Mom never really articulated her values and beliefs out loud. She simply lived them. Meet people where they are. Treat everyone with dignity and respect. Do what needs doing. Perhaps most importantly, every act of service matters. I know that she saw and felt the magnitude of the systemic challenges we face and the injustices we heap upon one another, but she had a profound belief in the value of changing a single life. I think it mattered to her as much, if not more, than the whole shebang. The Hazel I knew was brilliant and, like the rest of us, flawed. She was fiercely outspoken and quietly introspective. She appeared completely disorganized, but could always put her finger on the exact thing she needed in the many piles and bags of paperwork and books on and around her desk. She went to bat for those needing help and had the dark sense of humor shared by those who attempt to elevate the underserved. She was moved by music and the written word and easily found joy in small moments. She could teach herself anything, and I still believe she went back to school when I went to college because she couldn't stand that I got to go without her. So thank you for letting me talk about her with you for a while. I hope some of you will share some things with me about the Hazel you knew.
Jessica, can you come back?
Jessica, just a plaque for your accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a bag too.
Oh, there's more.
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
It keeps coming.
Thank you.
Many gifts. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. And to Janet and to Tom and Maggie. I'm thankful you guys got introduced last night before the rain and the lightning came. So, because that was a pain. So I'm glad you got introduced. And Jessica would have been there, but she went to Mexico and came home with Montezuma's Revenge. And I told her, you just got to drink tequila. The next Hall of Fame inductee, real quick. One We Are Fort Hill committee member I missed was Ben Brower, Dr. Ben Brower. Ben's not here today. He's a very good, important part of our committee, but it is fried chicken weekend in LaVale. And Ben's up there helping do the fried chicken because he is an Allegheny guy. So, but I didn't want to miss Ben. I'd be remiss to do that. The next inductee is Francis Pat Yarnell from the class of 1941. These are the type of people that we look to find because when they send their bios in, it just blows you away. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole bio, but he was very important in introducing nuclear power to our United States Navy, working with Adam Rickover and some legendary names. He was a design engineer. He just, everywhere he went, he just created paths for the future. Now he is widowed, and he is now in West Lafayette, Indiana, and he's over 100 years old. And he very much wanted to be here. But we wish him the best, and I hope I see 100. So accepting today on his behalf is his son, Tom, and Tom's wife, Maggie. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I know Dad wanted to be here very badly. We thought we had him convinced even up to last week, but he just didn't feel he's used to flatlands now, and he wasn't used to being walking on these hills, so he didn't feel comfortable. But he does want to, excuse me, he does want to thank some people first. Timothy Arnold, my cousin, who did all the resume work for him, and also the committee that selected him as a member of this. So I say he did want to come, he did want to be here. But what I wanted to do, he gave me a list of things and told me I either had to do them or he was going to get me when I got home. So, so here we go. He was born in 1923. Went to grade school in 1929. That was the same year as the stock market crash. Led into the Great Depression, caused a lot of pain and grief for an awful lot of people. His family being one of them. His dad had been furloughed from the B&O and took off trying to find work. He eventually did find work in Washington, D.C., but the family was still here in Cumberland. So they moved in with parents, and along with them, there were other families that moved in with them. So in reality, there were 8 adults trying to run a family in one house up on Maryland Avenue. I'd hate to see that go around. He entered Fort Hill as one of the first classes. He graduated in 1941 from Fort Hill. And like I say, it was one of the first classes to go through all the way here. His big thrill being here was 1940. It was the first time Fort Hill beat Allegheny. The running back that did it was a gentleman by the name of Ira Golden. He eventually, 3 years later, he died on Omaha Beach during the invasion of Normandy, to rescue Normandy. He thought he was going to be that football star, but he was a skinny little kid, 120 pounds. Said he went out, and the best thing that ever happened to him was Coach Golden didn't give him a football uniform. Says it probably saved his life. But he did take up the trumpet, played in the band all through high school. He still has that trumpet, and he still plays that trumpet occasionally, but still plays it. And I'm sure he would have been proud of the performance the band put on last night at the football game. I'm sure that would have been a soft spot in his heart. After graduation, he, I guess you'd say, bummed around. He worked here in Cumberland for a while, and then on December 7th, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. At that time, it put everybody into war, and he took off and joined the Navy. Spent 3.5 years in the Navy, 2.5 of it in North Africa, repairing the planes that came in from bombing missions, taking care of all the engine work, all the metalcraft work. When the war was over, he came back to Cumberland. He tried to get into college, and all the colleges were full because all the GIs wanted to do the same thing. But in the time before he actually got accepted any place, he met Helen Brown, who eventually became my mom. She passed away a number of years ago. But he finally was accepted at Potomac State, spent 2 years there, and went on to West Virginia University. He was worried all the way through that he could make the grades, that he could handle it. Well, it turned out he was a master's student all the way through. He was on the dean's list for 4 years. Graduated with high honors and became a mechanical engineer. He worked for a couple of years for General Electric, and then he was given the opportunity to go to work for Westinghouse. Westinghouse had a nuclear plant in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where we ended up settling for our lives. He spent a number of years there, retired in 1968. As it was mentioned, he was involved very heavily in the nuclear reactor area there. Some of you, I'm sure, remember Admiral Rickover. Dad did not work directly under him, but he did know Dad's name. So, and he was a phenomenal man, even though Dad said he was pretty mean. But he did retire in 1968. Moved to Lafayette to be with us, with his family, because he knew we weren't coming back home. So he's spending the rest of his days in West Lafayette in a very nice retirement home, independent living. We get to see him 3 or 4 times a week. And I think that's one of the reasons that he wanted to come out. That's about it for what Dad had to say. I have one comment to make. Dad is a marvelous man. He's famous for his work in nuclear energy, but the thing that makes him a fabulous man is his character, his desire to work, his caring for people. And because of that, I'm very proud to call him Dad. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I also wanted to play the trumpet. It was in the 6th grade. I went into my music teacher with Sam Benson, who also grew up on White Avenue. I was here. Sam was there. They gave Sam the trumpet, gave me the tuba. And let me tell you, my dad, Roy, which many of you remember, really enjoyed my practice sessions at the house of the tuba. Next, let me tell you about the Hall of Fame. It's tough to make the Hall of Fame because what we do when we accumulate all of our nominations, we put out a ballot with no names on it from the 12 committee members of We Are Fort Hill. It's anonymous ballots, and we send them out and we give each one, and then they vote, yay or nay. And you got to have 9 of 12 to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Many people have gotten 8. Hazel, for 2 years, got 8. Then she made it. So it's very, and this is a tough crowd. This We Are Fort Hill committee is a tough crowd. They're not going to just throw somebody in there. We want to stay select in who we put in the Hall of Fame. And we are very, very stringent on the criteria we want in the Hall of Fame and who makes it and who doesn't. So it's a very big honor to Hazel Waller and Francis Pat Yarnell to make the Hall of Fame. Now our deeds, not words. Deeds, not words are members, that are people that don't necessarily have to be from a Fort Hill graduate, even though the three this year are Fort Hill graduates. But it's for your community effort that you have given to Fort Hill through the years. Our first recipient is Ellen Proudfoot Arnone. Now, I mentioned earlier about the work she did on the World War II Memorial. And she was a 1956 Fort Hill graduate. She earned her BS and Masters of Education from Frostburg State College. And she was married to Moose Arnone. You all remember Moose, the best basketball official I ever dealt with. And there were some bad ones. And Jeff, you know who I'm talking about. So anyway, she is. I'm not going to read the whole bio, but she spent 28 years at Bell. She's still very much affiliated with the city of Frostburg. You'll see her in pictures representing Frostburg, and pictures representing Cumberland. She's 80 some years old, and she's up on ladders like 5 high. She is fearless, but she is also a very dedicated member of the We Are Fort Hill Committee, and we honor her this year with deeds, not words. All right, I got 5 left. I need 5 minutes. All right, thank you, Ellen Proudfoot Arnone.
He rambles. When I first heard about receiving this award, I thought it was because of the 75th anniversary celebration that we had. I've not been active in Fort Hill activities except for, Mark, get this, the class of 1956. When a member of the 75th anniversary committee called and asked if I would consider chairing a subcommittee and coordinating the extravaganza at the Allegheny Museum, which was scheduled to run for 1 month. Now, this was a year ahead, they called. I hesitated. But after talking with my siblings and my family, I figured, okay, why not? I can do this. I managed to recruit 7 alumni to head each one of the decades of the history of the school. Those decade chairs got 2 orders. Number 1, each presentation needed to look like a Saks Fifth Avenue window. And 2, you can't spend any money. This was 1 long year. I borrowed stages and mannequins and alumni collections and memorabilia from Fort Hill, and those committee members were just fantastic. On July 6th, we opened the celebratory displays to 800 people at $2 each. You must have been there, you're just nodding. The museum received a percentage, but the proceeds went to the scholarship committee. This was a massive endeavor that brought pride to a lot of people, but I thought, that's it. I'm not taking on anything else. And then Ed Root called, asked if I would be interested in serving on the We Are Fort Hill Committee. My first question was, does it involve fundraising? When he explained the organization's mission, I jumped on board. I've been on several committees in my lifetime. Believe me, Mark knows how to run a meeting. We get in there, we talk about what has to be done, and quickly get it over with. Sometimes only 15 minutes a month. It's my kind of committee. If any of you are genuinely interested in serving, please let us know. And for those of you who support us financially, we are extremely grateful. Now, let me digress just a minute. Growing up, the Proudfoot family lived on Mapleside. And every day when I walked to school, I passed this small monument that was right inside the fence at Fort Hill Stadium. Years later, on my way to I call it We Are FH meeting, I parked down the hill so that I could scout the new stadium. Then I got inquisitive about that small stone, and wondered if it was still there among the overgrown trees and the brush. By the time I got to our meeting, I was fired up. And I asked if the others remembered it. And most people didn't even know it was there. I questioned the committee about the possibility of doing something for the, quote, boys of Fort Hill High School who made the supreme sacrifice in World War II. We agreed to at least clean it, possibly cut down some of those trees, because these boys needed to be honored. They had been forgotten. The committee agreed it was worth investigating. Rumor had it that 17 boys had died and that the 17 trees were planted in their memory. And if any of you remember those trees, they had to just go to the forest and dig them up and put them in there. They were all scruff pines. Mark went to Principal Cannon, and she too had no idea that that monument was there. First step was to get permission from the principal and then to proceed with the design. I talked with Vince Montana, who was then, he was a friend and was also supervisor of maintenance and school construction. His comment was, I've been trying to cut down those diseased and dead trees for years. I remember the discussion that followed, and with Candy on board, we went for it. Now, the thing was, we have so many diehards in this community that when you go cutting down all those trees, remember, so that people had to pay instead of standing on the hill watching the games. So we had an agreement on the committee. Nobody was to say anything. Now, that's 11 people. That's pretty good, because this was hallowed ground. So the committee decided to keep quiet about the trees being cut, avoiding any of the backlash that would come from those diehards. Committee member Sally Shreves, who lives just across the street from the school, she was our lookout person. So we waited patiently for the Board of Education to cut down the 17 trees, which had turned into a total of 67. And can you imagine if we had had to pay to have them taken down? I mean, that would have been out of our realm. Our project just grew, and it was a team effort. I volunteered to head to FSU and went through the microfiche for hours, trying to find the 17 who had been rumored to have died. After hours of searching, I found an article that had a small headline tucked back in the paper. It was like this big. It noted 17 die in war. I thought, hot dog, I probably did this. I was so tired, I just copied it, went home, read it, and realized that it was a list of 17 men in the county. Only one was from Cumberland. He was my first Fort Hill name. Then I went to Yvonne Imes, the journalism English teacher here at Fort Hill. She willingly organized some students to help. They volunteered going through the remaining Fort Hill Sentinels that were here, and a lot of those issues were missing. This small group researched the names of those who enlisted in the service. Many had enlisted too in January that year because they went in the service, early, one semester early. I took notes of all who were serving, including their ranks, checking then to see if they had died in the war. Returning to FSU, when the research librarian steered me into several other directions, and I found 31 names that were cross-referenced with several other booklets of those who had made the supreme sacrifice in Allegheny County. An additional 2 from Fort Hill were confirmed from Ancestry, making a total of 34 identified. Milton Crow, I found him on Find a Grave. He was buried in France. Then I took that list to alumnus Floyd Winfield, a World War II veteran who did attend our memorial dedication in uniform. He added several notes that were possibilities of people who had just enlisted. So from that list, an additional 2 were identified as victims of the war. Another one that he had given us was listed in Baltimore County as his parents had moved immediately after their son graduated early and had entered the service. The final count was 38. I'm getting chills. I knew that if we could find out who they were, we would be remembering them as individuals. We needed to bring this memorial to life. The research was a labor of love. This project was one of joy. And I'm referring to that other project, which was long and tiring. But the granite marker reads this. Memorial Park. In memory of the boys of Fort Hill High School who made the supreme sacrifice in World War II, planted on April the 11th, 1945, by Mark W. Rowe, custodian, dedicated by students and teachers. Right away, I thought, a custodian did this, but you have to remember the time, as was referred to earlier. We found out, Melissa Hansel, a member of our committee, discovered that she uncovered the information about Mr. Rowe. He graduated from Cornell. He was the head custodian here. It was the times then. He was lucky to have a job, but I think he was in charge of a lot of things here. Anyway, we have a committee, dedicated committee, and I thank them for this award. I'd like to thank my family, my classmates, class of 56, and my friends for their support. You know, you do things in life because you enjoy it. I am so proud to have served my alma mater. This is where I got my start. Now I have to go bust tables again. Oh, and if you haven't seen the memorial, when you leave the school, at least drive around and look at it. And you can park there and get out. Maybe read some of the names. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ellen. You know, we have a battle. The class of 56 is the greatest. The class of 74 is the greatest. But you can see the correlation because we were all born in 56. Oh, you can hear them already. They'll be ready next year. Our next Deeds Not Words is CWO 4 Jim Combs. Jim attended Fort Hill from grades 8 to 12, graduated in 1963. But the big thing he has done after, of course, he joined the Navy, you could see how many lives were just so involved with the military in World War II. But he was in the Naval Reserve CB unit, and then he went and attended U.S. Navy boot camp. But what he has done more than anything is the Fort Hill Scholarship Fund and how that has grown to heights never imagined. So I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm just going to bring Jim up here and let him talk. Jim?
Thank you, Mark. All right. Fort Hill Scholarship Fund is probably the thing that I, for the last 10 years, spent a lot of time working on. But I got to give credit to somebody else. Henry Robeson, who is Larry Boggs' father-in-law. The day I retired, I came home, and Henry had already been bugging me about getting together and doing something about the scholarship fund. And so that's how I got started on the whole thing, was because Henry wanted me to be involved in helping put together this idea that he had that we ought to have a scholarship fund at Fort Hill. Now, you can look in your book there, you can see, but I mean, we've given out almost $1 million now since it started. Actually, it's over 100. It'll be over 100,000 this coming year. We're going to give out this coming year over $100,000. If anybody'd like to contribute to that, we're always looking for contributions. It's all tax deductible. It's a 501c. The money is invested, and so you get another feel of it is that the committee does not make the selection on who the recipients are. That's left to the school. We tell them what scholarships we have, how much each scholarship is, what the rules are for each scholarship, and the guidance office takes it from there and they select the students. At the beginning, we had people say, "Oh, we'll pick them." I said, "No. You can't have the people raising money doing the picking. That doesn't work." And it's worked out well now, and we hope to keep it going. As you can see from the bio, I just quickly wrote down here, and I got to make a little comment about one of them. I'm a retired Naval Reserve Chief Warrant Officer. The Chief Warrant Officer program closed for a long period of time after World War II. And actually, another member of my class, Dave Adam, who lives down in Texas, his dad was with the CB unit here, and we both went into CB unit when we graduated when we were seniors in high school. But it was interesting because he was a Coast Guard officer. Winfield Adam, most people, the older people remember who he is. But we started out that way, and like I said, I retired, and I hadn't been retired, I don't think 24 hours before Henry called me up and said, "You got to go to this meeting with me." And it was actually one of the best things that's ever happened. I'm really pleased with that. Now, unfortunately for myself and my family, I was doing this. I have 4 daughters that all went to Fort Hill. All 4 daughters graduated from Fort Hill. And my second oldest daughter, Sherry, got sick and died. And when I went out to visit with her, the last thing she said was she didn't want to have flowers. She wanted a scholarship in her name. So we've done that every year, and it'll go on forever. There's enough money there now that it's a totally 4-year endowed scholarships. And I've gotten really some nice letters from the students who have received that scholarship, how pleased they were that because they had it's a 4-year scholarship. They're getting all 4 years paid. They're getting between $5,000 and $6,000 a year right now, each one of them. So, and that'll continue to grow because we've used Boggs and Company to be our investment managers. So we're getting a good rate of return on all the money, and that's where we go. One side item is talking about Dave Adam. He's the one who told me about the warrant program that he'd applied for it. We both had gone into CB unit here in Cumberland. His dad was a Coast Guard officer. When Adam used to be a County United Way director, and we both went there. And he told me about this warrant officer program, and he was applying for it. I said, "Okay, well, I'll apply for it too." But it's really interesting because I applied for it, got selected the first year. He reapplied the next year. So 2 Fort Hill graduates got the first two warrant officer program awards when we opened the program. I was hoping maybe he'd make it up here today, but he didn't. But anyway, it's like life. You have to keep doing. I've been to Vietnam. I spent 30 years in the Naval Reserve. But what I was going to say is, I was the first selectee. He was the second. So 2 years in a row, a Fort Hill graduate was the first 2 selectees in the Naval Reserve to be promoted from enlisted to the warrant officer program. I don't know what else I can say. I mean, it's just been. I went through my apprenticeship program. I've been blessed, and I've been able to give back to the community and particularly to the school. And it's just one of those things that I hope we can keep on doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been given the distinct honor and privilege to recognize our third recipient for the 2023 the Deeds Not Words Award, Mark Mangus. Since Mark came back into town in Janie in around 2007, I've been privileged to serve on multiple committees with Mark. And as Ellen said, he's always been a leader. And when you do go to a meeting, you have a very specific agenda, you follow the agenda, and then you're out of there. So, being respectful of everyone's time. I will have to say that as many of you, I'm sure, are aware, Mark was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in the mid 70s. And one of the first things I did when I learned that Mark was on a committee that I was on, I brought in my copy of the Sports Illustrated, and Mark graciously signed it. And it said, "Go Terps, Mark Mangus." So thank you very much. But as you know, we're aware, Mark has been instrumental in multiple committees here at Fort Hill High School. And I, again, have been privileged to serve on those. Obviously, he is chair of the We Are Fort Hill Committee. And I also sit on with him with the Greenway Avenue Committee. And he does a phenomenal job with that committee. Greg is also a member there. And, if you look at the stadium today and you heard the sound system last night, that's a tremendous improvement. And Mark and that committee has been very, very instrumental in working with Principal Cannon to make certain that Greenway Avenue Stadium continues to be the absolute best high school venue in the state of Maryland. I know, too, that Mark is very involved with Melvin Methodist Church, and I think some of his fellow parishioners from Melvin are here today. So it's not just at Fort Hill. He's involved throughout the community. So with that being said, Mark Mangus.
It's easy to be chairman of committees. What you do is you surround yourself with very good people and you let them be themselves. And that's it. But I'm very happy to be involved in everything. So thank you, George, for that very gracious introduction. I grew up not talking about myself very much. I always let my accomplishments and achievements speak for me. Plus, I was the youngest of three with two older sisters. And I learned very fast, many times it's best to just keep your mouth shut. So that's what I did. But today, I guess I'm supposed to talk about myself. I guess I was the epitome of the Deeds Not Words award, and that was from a very young age. But I'm supposed to talk about myself, so here goes. And we will deal with the 800-pound gorilla in the cafeteria. It was going to be in the courtyard, but now we're here. So, as many of you know, for the past 5.5 years, I've been fighting cancer. It started in April of 2018, where a spot in my chest mushroomed into 5 tumors in my brain. A large one behind my left ear, 2 in the cerebellum region, 2 small ones in the front. Well, in May of 2018, I underwent a 7.5-hour surgery at Johns Hopkins. And he took out the large one behind my left ear and the 2 in the cerebellum. Cyber ray radiation took care of the 2 in the front. They all were successful, which led my sister, Robin, to make sure that I knew that I now have the empty brain she remembers growing up with. It continues to persist. So, that's something that we will take care of as we go. Now, I'm not an overly religious guy, but I do pray to the Lord. And when your mortality hits you in the face, you turn to the Lord. And, I prayed to the Lord. Of course, I said, thy will be done. I'm in your hands. But I've got things to do. So please give me the opportunity to do it. So far he's been listening. He always listens. So far he's been granted. Now your priorities change when you get this situation hits you. I don't scream at the TV set anymore during athletic events. No matter how many stupid referees make ridiculous calls. I'm still a passionate rooter. I root for Fort Hill, University of Maryland, the Orioles, the Ravens. But when the game's over, I let it go. Because your priorities change. And you realize that it's just a game, always has been. But now things are so much more important. With my wife, Janie, we've been together going on 35 years. She's been with me every step of the way, especially these last 5 trying years. Thank you so much. My mom, Norma, who is 91, will be 92 in February, who is up at Eagle House, assisted living in Frostburg, in Lonaconee. This is what leads to the voice you're hearing. I'm not the deep, rich baritone I used to be. But she enjoys it up there. She is doing well. She's healthy. She still recognizes all the family members. And still from time to time, the Mangus or Robinson, her parents, that feistiness comes out. And it's great to see. My sister Vicky is here today with her husband Jack and their kids, Kevin and Matt and Carrie and Carrie's son, Sam, who I beat at cards all the time. To my sister Robin, her husband Jim and their kids, Dave, Dan, and Doug got married to Kate, and they showed up with their little girl, who's 3 months old now? 3 months. Kayla, thank you all for coming. The goddaughter. Great goddaughter. Yeah, that's right, you're my godson. So, to my church, Melvin Methodist, who I am the administrative board chairman. And we keep fighting to stay relevant, a small church, but we're doing our best. To Fort Hill, who I stay involved with through the We Are Fort Hill organization. So proud to be a member of that. Plus, let me tell you this about what Ellen said on the World War II memorial. It really helps when your principal, Candy Cannon, is ex-military. Really helps. And thank you, Candy, for everything. Now, Candy, her claim to fame, a couple years ago, she loves me telling this story. We had a golf tournament out of Four Sisters. And she wanted to drive the beer cart because she had done that in previous functions with other organizations. Well, here in one hole, the foursome was held up because a rattlesnake had came onto the cart path and it wouldn't move. It would not move. So Candy rolled up in her cart and she said, "Excuse me, I'll take care of this." Took out a shovel, cut off its head, threw it into the woods, and said, "All right, who wants a beer?" And everybody said, "Yes." To the Greenway, you have to do stadium committee, which is so important because, as George said, we want to keep that very vibrant. We have done the turf. We put an 8-lane track in. And because we now have a regulation track, Fort Hill will have the West Regional Track Meet this coming spring, 2024, at Greenway. We've done the sound system. We're going to do the lights next year. We'll have LED, fabulous lights. We have great plans. We just need money. So if anybody hits the lotto, please keep Greenway in mind. So these are the priorities now that matter. I thank the Lord for the blessings that He has bestowed upon me. First off, He gave me above average athletic ability. He also gave me physical size. Jeff Crone, my fellow broadcast partner, John Bone, whose student Isaac is here recording this today. John couldn't be here, but we see this all the time in these games. These players, they play with heart. They play with so much ability, but they're 5'9", 5'10", 170, 180. And Greg Hare will tell you, there's no substitute for physical size. So I thank the Lord for that. So that's about it. I will continue to fight. I have good news from time to time. I have setbacks. Nothing serious at this time, knock on wood. But I will continue to fight this. But today, you have honored me. And I'm so very grateful. God bless you all. Thank you. Well, this is so weird because usually I'd like walk off like, but I'm the MC. So I can't. Well, here, it's that. Thank you.
There's your plaque.
So I do have two announcements. The table pieces, the flowers in the middle of the table. There are for whoever each individual table wants the flower. So you can fight out amongst yourselves. But leave the red plates because we use them every year. And secondly, before we end, Ron, you had something you wanted to say.
Something that Dad wanted me to mention in the talk, and I forgot to. All these Fort Hill graduates and all these Cumberland people, hopefully we can come up with an answer for something. When Dad was in high school, the colors were scarlet and white. He wants to know where and when Go Big Red started.
The other announcement is for all of today's award winners, inductees, and D's Not Words, we want to get a couple photos when we're done here. So at this time, I'll call on Dr. George Brown for today's benediction.
As I always say, this is absolutely one of the best events I attend every year. So again, congratulations to the recipients. So let us bow our heads for the benediction. Holy and eternal God, we again thank you for your good and everlasting grace. We thank you for giving us the time to gather to celebrate the grace-filled lives of those we have honored today. We thank you for your abundant grace that is shown to us each and every day, and we ask that you continue to guide us to do your will in all that we say and do. As we depart today, please always let us be mindful. You, O Lord, are always present. We pray for safe travel for those going far and near. And the people of God say, Amen.
Amen.